An original way to look into Italy's culture can come from considering the fathers of great Italian innovators. In some episodes, I traced the paths of entrepreneurs who learned their father's craft and brought it to maturity, as in the like father, like son stories of technology pioneers Camillo and Adriano Olivetti, coach designers Battista and Sergio Pininfarina, or master chocolatiers Pietro and Michele Ferrero. In other episodes, I presented stories of fathers who gave their children a generative imprint, which later took completely new directions. From the trumpetist Mario Morricone, his son Ennio learned to develop his instrument's voice into an original compositional style, which would make him the greatest film score composer of our age. From the great ebonist Carlo Bugatti, his son Ettore took the idea of applying beauty to furniture and transferred it to automobiles. From the humble peasant and factory worker Umberto Cucinelli, his son Brunello found inspiration for his cashmere company and ethical approach to business. I invite you to check out these episodes to learn more about these stories. Now, if we apply these general observations to great Italian artists, we can find a similar pattern. In one way, the craft of a father offers his children an artistic apprenticeship, as we see with the writer Bernardo Tasso, who taught the art of verse to the 16th century poet Torquato Tasso, or the sculptor Pietro Bernini, who formed his son Gian Lorenzo to become the greatest architect and sculptor of the 17th century. In another way, a father's imprint can lead to unexpected outcomes. Boccaccino di Chiellino, father of 14th century writer Giovanni Boccaccio, worked for a Florentine bank, and as he moved to Naples for business, gave his son a fundamental exposure to the city's court and vibrant literary culture. Vincenzo Galilei, a composer and advocate of the late 16th century attempt to restore the Greek sung drama melodrama which is behind the birth of opera, left his artistic imprint on his son Galileo, a scientist who chose to sketch his first observations of the moon or sustain Copernicus' heliocentric theory by writing a fictional dialogue in Italian and not an essay in Latin, as was the custom. In this context, I cannot omit the strange case of a father who gave his son an accidental gift, which triggered one of the most remarkable careers in Western art, Ludovico di Leonardo Buonarroti, who worked as mayor in Settignano, one of the poorest townships near Florence in the 15th century. Indigence brought him to consider sending his son to work in the local quarry to make some extra money. In his family line, there was no trace of artists or sculptors, yet the job gave the boy his first exposure to stone cutting and marble carving. And that was the accidental beginning of Michelangelo's artistic career. I hope this little overview gave you an unusual insight into some well-known figures. What these stories have in common is a leading question. What can a father give a child? What is the greatest paternal gift, or literally patrimony, that we have received from our fathers? Each of us, I'm sure, has a personal answer to that question. Following our examples, we could say a soil, a model, or maybe an accidental circumstance of personal success or failure. In the case of Pietro Catelli, the protagonist of our story today, the father's gift was a Chicco, literally a bead or a seed, but at the same time, the name of one of the most widely recognized global brands in childcare. This gift would trigger one of the most remarkable stories in Italian industry. Kiko was the diminutive of Enrico, Pietro Catelli's firstborn. As his father was starting a new entrepreneurial adventure, the name Kiko indicated the desire to endow his brand with the same sense of freshness, promise, and genuine care that he aspired to give his son. Pietro Catelli's gift of a Chicco, however, was much more than a brand, but rather, as evidenced in the Italian meaning of the noun, it was an incredibly beautiful wish. Kiko means, in fact, a bead, suggesting the idea of a necklace or a family chain, a seed, implying the empowering force of a blossom, and a bean, indicating the need to be part of a larger community. There is no Chicco without its plural, Chicchi, or as the English poet John Donne would state more adamantly, no man is an island. That was the gift. Now, who was Pietro Catelli before the birth of Enrico and the creation of Chicco? In 1958, as he started his adventure as both parent and innovator, Catellli was already the owner of a pharmaceutical company specialized in venipuncture and medication. He had started the business 12 years before, a year after the end of World War II, in his own garage in Grandate near Como and its famous lake. Thanks to his father's work for the Swiss railroads, Pietro had acquired an international horizon in his youth. First, by studying in Chiasso, the last Italian city before the border with Switzerland, and then by working in Germany for a manufacturer of syringes and thermometers. Building on this experience and relying on the selling skills he had acquired, he opened his company in 1946 and promoted his products by traveling by bicycle all over the Como area. His company's name was Artsana, which stands for Articoli Sanitari e Affini, health and related items. And his signature product was a painless syringe known as Pic Indolor. This would become one of the most popular products ever sold in Italy. As the business grew, in 1958, after the birth of his first son Enrico, followed by the birth of siblings Michele and Francesca, Pietro Catelli decided to reposition his target and locate Chicco within a much broader horizon. His idea was that of offering a holistic approach to parenting, which avoided a compartmentalized approach to the child's needs by building a coordinated web of interconnected products addressing the medical, emotional, and practical components of childcare. For Catellli, it was not enough to focus on pharmaceutical items or parts. He wanted to design the whole ecosystem of a child and redefine care, like in the double meaning of the Italian word cura, as both a medical or scientific attention and a genuine zeal for the person's overall well-being. So he aspired to actively connect pharmaceutical research and medical practice, child hygiene and the practical needs of parents, effective design of day-to-day solutions, and emotional, psychological growth. This holistic approach explains not only why Chicco is a leading brand in the industry, but also a leading manufacturer of all sorts of child-related products, from hygiene, skincare, feeding and nursing, to clothing, toys, strollers and baby carriers. Pietro Catelli's vision of childcare as a system of interrelated components, emotional, psychological, medical and social, is rooted first in the idea that every individual is relation to society and the environment, and second, in the words of his company's motto, in a solid passion for life. Not an abstract life as a value in se, but the concrete life as a set of challenges and values, as a space of constant improvement, as a place to build integrity, respect and hope for the future. If we think about the life of a newborn, it is not difficult to understand this idea. Life is a bundle of needs. For a baby who needs everything, but also for us who still need everything. Maybe not in practical terms, but certainly in terms of desire to grow, build meaningful stories, and fulfill our endless thirst for happiness, or as in the US we would say, our pursuit of happiness. Against the backdrop of concrete life as a bundle of needs and of care as a complex ecosystem of values and functions, the practical problem-solving approach of Pietro Catelli thus embodied an idea of innovation as the ability to craft original products not from the outside through numbers or market analyses, but rather from the inside, in dialogue with parents, clients, and his own experience. Marketing shows the quantity and location of commercial interactions, but can never detect the quality, perception, and actual use of a product. This qualitative exchange, which is key for both doctors and designers, is a deeper look at revealing symptoms or problems made evident in actual use. To put it briefly, Catelli's way to innovation consists in looking inward to look forward. That is, in the attentive gaze at the smallest and apparently unnoticeable problems of newborns, toddlers, and growing children as a ground for practical and comprehensive solutions. By mingling medical and practical knowledge, pharmaceutical expertise and creative design, science and fashion, the company grew its portfolio over the decades, producing lines of breastfeeding, nursing, reproductive or hygiene products, modeling educational toys, items for relaxation, play, sleep, or travel, and acquiring the clothing line for babies and expectant mothers prenatal. The entrepreneurial ability of Pietro Catelli would be recognized in 1974 when the then president of the Italian Republic, Giovanni Leone, conferred upon him the title of Knight of Labor, and he would be crowned by an extraordinary success over his lifetime. The continuing legacy of Mr. Chicco after his death in 2006 is a global company which has 150 shops in Italy and is now present in 120 countries all over the world, as well as a recognized model of childcare as a dynamic synthesis of medical research and day-to-day parenting. So Pietro Catelli's gift to his son then became a seed or a bead of a much larger story, we could say. As Pietro Catelli approached the end of his life, he decided, however, to leave another gift, this time to his employees and the local community. In year 2000, on the occasion of his 80th birthday, Pietro Catelli opened a toy horse museum in Grandate near his company's headquarters, which was later recognized with the Guggenheim Enterprise and Culture Award. The museum hosts 650 toy horses from the 17th century to the present, coming from all over the world, made of wood, fabric, tin, papier-mâché, in the most diverse forms, as rockers, tricycles, chairs, walkers, or merry-go-round horses. Catelli's mission was that of collecting and restoring a historical patrimony, and at the same time inspiring children to use their imaginations, as toy horses always encouraged their owners to do since the time of the oldest rocking horse of 1610, now conserved at the Victoria and Albert Museum of London. For Catellli, toy horses represented not just the symbol of childhood of all ages, but also timeless learning and creative tools. From the 17th and 18th century, when they gave children the first motivation to learn how to ride a horse, to the 19th century, when they offered children an anticipation of the grown-up world, mirroring transportation, the conquest of territories, or the wild animals of Buffalo Bill's show. Today, a toy horse continues to be one of the first things a child possesses, offering children an open space of imagination and creativity beyond a computer or iPad screen. So in one way, the long-time collecting passion of Pietro Catelli became de facto a mirror of his brand's cultural, emotional, and social mission. In another way, however, against the backdrop of our conversation, the museum also represented the expression of an ultimate fatherly gift, or more simply, another Kiko, this time in the form of a cosmos. As in the dual meaning of the Greek word as both ornament and universe, a toy horse is not solely a single item, a training tool, or a piece of entertainment, but is part of a world, indicates a universe of possibilities, and works as an imaginative mirror. In this light, we can also see the museum not just as a showcase of practical instruments of education, how to ride a horse, how to be a grown-up, how to interact with the real world, but rather as a stable of future dreams. The toy horse, like a Kiko, is the first seed of growth and a powerful propeller of possibilities for rich and poor children alike. In it, Catellli saw the greatest wealth a person can ever receive, which is the gift of imagination, or rather, the ability to see beyond the facade, the freedom to inhabit all places, and the courage to run as many paths as possible. This gift is the same that 20th century Italian writer Italo Calvino found in his father Mario in his moving short story La Strada di San Giovanni, The Road of San Giovanni, written in 1963, 10 years after his father's death. By spatially placing his remembrance on the hills surrounding his native city of Sanremo, Calvino contrasts the way uphill of his father to his own way downhill. His father's work as an agronomist and his precision in scientifically naming all plants and fruits and collecting them in his wicker basket, to his own attraction toward the city as a magic multiplicator of stories and anticipator of his writing career. In pondering their different paths, Calvino identified the most precious gift of his father in his gerla, the wicker basket, which, like a toy horse for Catellì, contained the distinct variety of being as a collected and active patrimony, a world of precision and imagination, and the coexistence of geometry and creative power. This is the real gift that Pietro Catelli shared with his boy Kiko, and through him with all the children and parents his company helped him reach. I invite you to think of the most precious gift that you received from your fathers in whatever situation you might be. As for me, on the second anniversary of his passing, I want to dedicate this episode to the loving memory of my own father, Giampaolo, who, like King Solomon, asked and received from his father the gift of wisdom, and who instilled in me the love for knowledge, the desire to pursue what is true, and the taste for beauty wherever it may be found. Thank you very much for watching. If you like this video, I invite you to subscribe to this YouTube channel or to the webpage www.italianinnovators.com to receive notifications of new episodes. You can also follow me on my LinkedIn profile or on Instagram at Italian Innovators for additional materials about this show. Thanks again, arrivederci e alla prossima.